Hello and welcome to a new SolidWorks tutorial. I'm Joseph Check, and in today's video we're going to look at the introduction to CAD modeling in SolidWorks. So it's basically going to be a SolidWorks 101 video for those of you who are new to SolidWorks or who may have some experience in other CAD modeling software that's out there. So let's go ahead and get started. This is the part that we're looking at creating today. I'm not going to focus on making an exact replica of this model, but I at least want you to know the steps that were taken and also the features that were used in making this model, so you can take those same steps and features and create models of your own. When you open SolidWorks, the first thing you'd want to do is head up to File, New, Part, and click OK. Before starting any sketch in SolidWorks, we want to choose the correct unit system that our part will be made in. So if you go down here to the bottom right of your screen, you'll see this little menu that you can click and choose between English or SI units. The default for SolidWorks is inches, pounds, and seconds. Let's just leave it on that for now. The next thing we'll do is go to the Sketch tab. Now, in SolidWorks and most CAD modeling software, you can start your sketch on any plane or any flat surface of an object. In our case, let's start with the front plane, so select the front plane. And now let's go ahead and trace the basic outline of our shape. So it's going to be an L shape. As you can see, SolidWorks kind of gives us these guidelines that our line tool can snap onto. This just allows you to make perfect horizontal or vertical lines. Your sketch will become shaded in whenever you close your sketch. So as you can see in this grayed out area, this basically means that your sketch is no longer an open sketch, that it has a complete enclosed sketch. So now that we have a closed sketch, we need to dimension our sketch to make it fully defined. As you can see down here in the bottom right of your screen, it says underdefined. And this basically means that lines in blue do not have a set dimension and they're basically free to move. So let's go up to Smart Dimension and simply click and drag out and then click again to set our dimension. In this case, I'll choose 3 for our height. Click and drag down for the width, which we'll put at 2.5. And then we need to set a thickness for our part. Once you get more familiar with SolidWorks or any CAD modeling software, you'll notice that there's more than one way to do a certain feature. So one of the quickest ways to set a thickness for your part is to set a dimension for the thickness. In this case, we'll do 0.5. So we fully define our part by using dimensions or relations. In this case, I'm going to use a relation to make the thickness of our part the same throughout. So basically, I want this dimension to be the same here. We do that by clicking this top line and then control-clicking this line over here. This brings up a menu on the left-hand side of your screen, and we're going to choose equal. This basically will make both of those distances equal. And as you can see, our sketch is now fully defined. If we ever wanted to go back into our sketch and change the thickness, we would only need to change this dimension here. So if I wanted 0.6, it would update thickness through the entire part. Let's leave it at 0.5 for right now. Now let's head over to the Feature tab, and we're going to extrude our part. So hit Extrude Boss Base. If your part is going to be symmetrical, it's usually a good practice to choose the direction of midplane. This basically means that it will extrude your part evenly on both sides of the midplane of your part. So let's choose a thickness that looks good. Let's try 2.5. That looks good. So we hit OK. Now we want to add some holes in our part on both this front plate and this bottom plate. So let's orientate our view to where we can see this bottom plate of our part. Let's go to the Sketch tab and then select the circle. We're going to click on this face here in order to start our sketch on that face. So we simply click, and then we can choose any point to draw a circle on that face. Now we need to set a smart dimension of this circle so it stays put on our part. Let's choose the center and an edge. Let's do 0.6. And then we choose the circle center and the other side, so it has a set distance from both sides, also 0.6. And then we need to add a diameter for our circle. Let's choose, let's say something like 0.25, and hit OK. So we would have the option of sketching another circle on this side of our part, but since our part is symmetrical, we can just make one feature on one side of our part and then mirror it to the other side. So let's go ahead and extrude cut this circle. Let's head over to the Features tab and then choose Extrude Cut. The blind direction should work for this part, but depending on your application, just know that there are different options to choose from. In this case, blind will work for us. If you rotate your part just a little bit, you can see in yellow the depth of the cut that will be made. Once you're happy with that, just hit OK. And as you can see, we now have a hole in our part. Let's go ahead and orient our view to the top. So in order to mirror this feature on our part, we would go to Mirror under the Feature tab, click on Mirror, and then choose on this drop-down menu of your feature tree the front plane, or whatever plane would be in the middle of your part. So we're going to mirror about this plane. So let's click on that. And now it prompts us to choose the features to mirror. In our case, it's going to be this last cut extrude, which we just made. So we click on that. As you can see, it gives us a preview of where this feature will be mirrored to. If you don't see this yellow preview, go ahead and make sure that you have full preview or partial preview selected. Let's go ahead and click OK. And as you can see, our part has updated and we now have two holes that are perfectly symmetrical on our part. This basically means now that if we made any changes to this hole that we initially made, it's going to update to this other circle. So if we changed our radius to something like 0.35, you can see that it automatically updates on the other side. I'm just going to leave it at 0.25 for now though. So let's just kind of repeat the step and orient our view to the right plane. Let's go ahead and go to Sketch, select our circle, and then choose this front-facing plane. So you can basically create the circle anywhere you want since you're going to dimension it later. So go ahead and click and drag and create a circle, and then go to the Smart Dimension tool. And we're going to select the edges, 0.6, from the center to the edge, make that 0.6. And then also we will specify the radius as 0.25. All right, so from here we can go to the Feature tab and Extrude Cut again and hit Enter. Now we'll go to the Mirror feature as before. We're going to select from the drop-down menu of our feature tree the front plane, since that is the plane that shows up in the middle of our part highlighted in orange. So we click on that. So SolidWorks automatically knows that this cut extrude 2 is the second cut extrude that we just made on our part, and it automatically updates since it kind of anticipates what we want to mirror. Let's go ahead and click OK. So as you can see, we now have the 4 holes in our part. So at this point, we can add the chamfer to the holes that we had just made. Under the Fillet drop-down menu, you can select chamfer, and then SolidWorks prompts us to select the items we want to chamfer. Usually you can select an entire face of a part, or you can select the edge of any feature that has been made. In our case, it's going to be the edge of this hole that we made. So we're going to select the first one, the second one, the third one, and the fourth one. As you can tell, it gives you this preview of what the chamfer is going to look like on your part. So as you can see, the dimension given for the length of the chamfer is 0.05 inches. In my case, that looks pretty good. We can always go back and increase this to something like 0.06, and then our chamfers will just get a little bit bigger. And you can also change the angle at which the chamfer is made. In our case, I'm just going to leave this at 0.05 and 45 degrees. And we'll hit OK. So as you can see, we now have the chamfers on all of our holes. And the next thing we can do is add fillets to the edge of our part. So just a quick tip on how to find a length of any side of your part is going to the Evaluate tab and then choosing Measure. So with this, you can choose any flat surface to get something like an area, or in my case, I just want to know what this dimension is in the front. So if we click on that, it says that our part was 2.5 inches in width. This means that our radius is going to be half of that value on the bottom. So let's go to the Feature tab and choose Fillet. So we want to select just the edge that we want filleted. So in our case, it's going to be this edge here and this edge here. And since our part was 2.5 inches, if we wanted the fillet to go completely in a circle, we would do 2.5 inches divided by 2. So now it has a 1.25 inch radius. Let's hit OK. So as you can see, we have this bottom filleted edge of our part. Let's go ahead and do something similar on the top. So let's choose Fillet again. And then we're going to select this edge and this edge. As you can see, SolidWorks keeps the same radius of what you chose for the previous fillet. So in our case, let's change this to something like 0.75. That looks good. Hit OK. So now we have filleted edges on the bottom and on the top. But now let's add a rib, or basically a support in the middle of our part. There's different ways that you can do this, but perhaps the easiest way to do this is by adding a rib using the rib feature. First, we have to orient our view to the front where we started. Then we're going to choose Sketch. Now, we want to make sure that we're sketching on the front plane. So let's select that from this feature tree. And then we hit Sketch. And then let's choose the Line tool. And then you'll see highlighted on the edge of a part this orange line. That basically means that your sketch will snap to this edge and follow it. So let's select that on one side and then see where it highlights in the other side and just click somewhere down here. So as you can see, our sketch is underdefined because it's showing up in blue, and it's also specifying this down here on the bottom of our screen. So let's add a dimension. Instead of going up to the Smart Dimension, you can also quickly access the Smart Dimension tool by just clicking on the line, and it brings up this quick select menu. And then we choose Smart Dimension. Click and drag out, and let's set a distance of 2.45. So as you can see, our sketch is still blue and underdefined because our sketch is basically following the edges of our part. So in order to add a distance away from the edge so it wouldn't move, we would select the Smart Dimension and then highlight over the end of the sketch and then find where the edge of our part is and then click and drag out. So let's set this for 0.45. So as you can see, our sketch is now fully defined and everything is black. That's what we want to see. Now, for the rib feature, let's go ahead and exit our sketch, rotate to the front to where we can see kind of the overview of our part. Let's go to the Feature tab and then select the rib feature. So the quick description that kind of comes up, it's just adding a thin walled support to a solid body. So let's click on rib. And then we can specify a thickness of the rib, which I'm going to choose as 0.25. So similar to the extrude option that we had earlier, we can choose to have our rib feature on the left side of our sketch, in the middle of our sketch, or on the right hand side. In this case, since our part is symmetrical, I'm just going to keep it in the middle. And we'll hit OK. So the last thing to do on our part is to add a fillet to kind of smooth out the edges of our rib feature that we just created. So let's go up to the fillet feature. And similar to the chamfer feature, it wants us to select either a face or an edge to fillet. In our case, we're not going to select an entire face of our part, but just individual edges. So I'm going to click on one edge, on this edge, on the top edge, and also the bottom edge. So as you can see, the preview kind of disappeared, and that's just because we have too many intersecting fillets. So we need to just decrease the radius on some of them. So let's see what 0.1 does for us. There we go. So 0.1, it looks like a good radius for most of our fillets that fits well with our rib feature. Let's go ahead and hit OK. So just a quick tip, anything on the left hand side of our feature tree orders how we made our part. So as you can see, we started with this boss extrude, and then we made a cut and mirrored that cut. We made another cut on the top, and then we also mirrored that cut. We chamfered all of our holes, and then we created a fillet on the bottom and the top. Then we added a sketch to follow our rib feature, and we then filleted our rib feature. If you want to mess around with this part more and go into individual features, all you would have to do is go over to a feature on the feature tree manager, simply left click, and then edit the feature or edit the sketch by which it was made. If we were to edit the sketch that was used to make this feature, we would just select the sketch, and then it would show us what dimensions we used to define our sketch. To change this, we could also just simply change the value to something like 2.5, and then exit the sketch, and it automatically updates after you exit your sketch. So at this point, our model is basically finished, and we can go to File, Save, and basically save our part as whatever we want. Well, that's it for this tutorial, guys. I hope it helped you kind of get an overview of some of the tools and the features involved in SolidWorks. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment area, and I'd be glad to help you out there. Hope you guys learned something, and happy modeling. We'll see you in the next video.